Hi there, this is Ilise Benun, your marketing mentor. And this is the podcast for you if and only if you are ready to leave the feast or famine syndrome behind, and I mean for good. Content marketing is one of the three most effective marketing tools for creative professionals of all kinds. And that's why it's an essential tool, one of three, in the Simplest Marketing Plan. I dare say it is the most effective one when you use it properly and consistently. And of all the content marketing you can do, and there are many different types, a marketing newsletter is the most effective kind, which is why today's episode is all about newsletters and what I like to call newsletter magic. So listen and learn. In my last episode, which was number 508, I had a conversation with Gigi Rosenberg about how to scuff up your content. And we talked a lot about the authenticity that comes through when you don't aim for perfection, but instead aim to be real. I actually think that is the key to authenticity. Don't try to be perfect. And so that's what I will attempt here with an episode where I'm going to riff a bit off of some bullets that I wrote down about how to start a marketing newsletter in 5 easy steps. So it may be a little scruffy and there may even be a bit of barking in the background. But that doesn't bother me at all. I hope it doesn't bother you. Second, this episode is dedicated to a client who recently challenged me with this. She said, I need convincing that content marketing is time well spent. All right, well, here's my argument. I'm going to start with a story. It's called, What the Heck Was His Name? I got a message and it said, do you know anyone who writes resumes? Now, this was from a designer client who was hoping I could refer someone. And I did know of someone, but what the heck was his name? He had reached out to me in the hopes that we could be referral partners, but since he didn't follow up and he didn't seem to have a newsletter, and I hadn't seen any of his posts recently on LinkedIn, his name totally slipped my mind. I racked my brain. And then finally, the one thing I remembered is that we had met right before I had my haircut, literally. So I went to my calendar and I found my last haircut and aha, there he was right above it. So can you guess why I'm telling you this? Because most potential clients won't look through their calendar to find you in their moment of need. And that's when you need to be in their minds. Instead, they'll just reach out to whoever they remember, because that's what we do, especially if they already know and trust the person from, say, reading their newsletter. So is this a not so subtle hint that you should start a newsletter? Absolutely. And just in case you're getting ahead of yourself thinking things like, no one wants another newsletter, or I've got nothing original to say, I want to share 3 newsletter metaphors that I have been working on over the last several years. One is that a newsletter is like a fishing pole. And so then the question is, what kind of bait do you need to attract the fish that you want if it were a fishing pole? And another way of saying that is, what do you want to be known for? Because that's what your newsletter should be focused on. Another metaphor is your newsletter as a well, that your list of people, even if it's super small, is essentially a well you can go to when you're thirsty. And my favorite is the idea of your newsletter as an accelerator in your car, the pedal that you press on when you want work. That's how I used to use it for years. And that's why I call it newsletter magic, because when you press on that accelerator, very often someone will respond and say, oh, I've just been thinking about you, or, oh, I've got a project in mind. Let's talk. So that means that you use it when you need it most. And I was talking to another client actually a couple of days ago, and she has a newsletter that she just loves to do. In fact, it's become the favorite part of her business is writing her newsletter. But it's working so well that she doesn't have time at the moment to write another newsletter because she's so busy. And she feels guilty because it's supposed to be monthly, but she hasn't written one in several months. And she has too much work as it is. And she doesn't want the newsletter magic, essentially. So as we were talking, I basically gave her permission to wait until things calm down a bit, because that's how you use it as the accelerator in the car. And really, no one's going to miss it until you send the next one, at which point they'll be glad to see it again and maybe, just maybe, respond with, hey, I've been meaning to reach out to you, because they are suddenly in their time of need, this being September with year-end coming fast. Because here's the thing, a newsletter is how you stay top of mind to ensure your network doesn't forget you exist. That is the whole point of the newsletter. Now, of course, there are other reasons to do it too, including building trust, which is essentially a result or a product of repetition and consistency. Sometimes it has to do with what's in the newsletter, but sometimes it's simply the effect of the repetition of, oh, there it is again. Oh, there it is again. Oh, she's still in business. Oh, she's doing this now, right? It's that constant repetition and consistency. And that's the hardest part, is the consistency. I know. And sometimes if you're too busy, you just can't do it. But that's fine, as long as you don't just totally drop it. And that's what I see a lot of people doing, actually, is they do one, they do maybe two, and then you never see it again. Another reason to do a newsletter is to show what you know, but not to show what you know about what you do, which may sound counterintuitive. It's to show what you know about what they need, essentially to let them know, whoever your people are, the people in your network, that you get them and that you understand the problems that they have. In fact, that you can articulate the problems maybe even better than they can. That's, in fact, what builds trust. And as I said before, another reason to have a newsletter is to attract the kind of work you want. And that's why you focus on what you do best and what you want to be known for. And if nothing else, sending a newsletter relatively consistently demonstrates your professionalism and your seriousness versus the flakiness that many creatives and many freelancers have. Your reputation is preceded by this thought, this impression of flakiness. And so you have to counteract that with professionalism and seriousness. And one of the ways you can do that is with a newsletter. But never forget that the main reason to, even if you have to, force yourself to write and send a marketing newsletter, and I suggest every month if possible and once a quarter at a minimum, is to avoid out of sight, out of mind. That is worse than ever these days, but that is the whole point. So that's why when it comes to marketing, my advice is, if you do nothing else, send a regular newsletter or occasional newsletter to everyone you know and everyone who knows you. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't need to be a big production, and it doesn't need to be perfect. That's the beautiful thing. In fact, most people won't even read it. And really, that is okay. If they delete it, it's okay. When you regularly send a newsletter, whether it's through email or through LinkedIn or through Substack, whatever format and delivery system or platform you use, you stay in people's minds. And that is how more work magically falls in your lap when you need it. So how do you get started with this newsletter? All right, I'm going to give you 5 easy steps. All right, step 1 is to choose a format. And there are many, many different possible formats. I'm just going to give you 3 of my favorite because they are especially good if you're just getting started. And the first format is just short and sweet. You can make one simple point, give them one golden nugget, and then that's it. And that's plenty. A lot of people think a quote unquote newsletter has to be long, which is the way they used to be, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can do it whatever way you want. So first possible format is short and sweet. The second possible format is the opposite, long and substantial. But be really careful about this. Don't make it so long that people will see it and think, oh, I do want to read this, but I don't have time right now. And they will set it aside and, of course, never get back to it. I don't know about you, but that happens to me a lot. So you want it to be, if you want it to be long, if you want to write long, then it especially has to be super compelling and beautifully written, which means you have to write it, not ChatGPT, of course. And it will engage someone in that moment so that they don't set it aside. And the third format is curated content. So where you essentially share not necessarily your own ideas, but you put your spin on other people's ideas, other people's content. You can share your favorite things. I have one client who sends out a newsletter called 5 Things to Share. And in it, she shares, yes, as you can imagine, 5 things. And they're, of course, related to what she wants to be known for and what she knows about what they need. So that's step number 1, choose a format. Step number 2, choose a platform, because you need to know where it's going and what structure it will have before you actually start writing. Most people start with a topic, but immediately get stuck. In my system, choosing the topic is the third step, not the first. So choose a format, choose a platform. I think LinkedIn has a really nice platform to start to create a newsletter. It used to be that only people in creator mode could start a newsletter, but now they've made it available to everyone. So even with the free version, you can start a newsletter and they make it super, super simple. So I would start there, especially if your market is on LinkedIn. But other services that many of my clients use include MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, which I understand is changing their name, Flowdesk, MailerLite, Constant Contact. There's so many of them. So choose the one that works best for you. Step number 3, now you can choose a topic. And you want to choose a topic that focuses on, as I've said, the work you want to be known for. So for example, if you do case studies, then focus on case studies. Apply what I'm about to say to that. If you do websites, no matter what you do with websites, then apply what I'm about to say in a way that focuses on that. But be sure to focus on what you want to be known for, because that's the impression you're going to create in the mind of your market. So again, 3 possible ideas for how to choose a topic. These are clearly not the only 3 out there, but I like 3s and I like to keep it simple. And these are also good ones to start with. So answer questions people ask, and these could be questions people ask directly to you, prospects and clients, or people wondering about what you do, or people in your market. So questions people may be asking on LinkedIn or in Slack channels or in other forums, right? So the first way to choose a topic is simply to answer questions that people ask. The second way is to help people avoid mistakes that you see them making as it relates to the work that you do, especially your clients and prospects. So what mistakes do you see people making? Talk about that, and then obviously give them a way to avoid the mistake. And the third way to choose a topic, this is actually my favorite one these days, which is to share what you are learning. Again, as it relates to what you do and what you want to be known for. But the point here is that you don't have to be the quote unquote expert. We are all constantly learning. We are all perpetual newbies, as Kevin Kelly has written, one of my favorite thinkers. And if you share what you're learning as you're learning it, it can be very engaging for people who are also curious, also learning. And this is a way of curating content, but also putting your spin on it and passing along what you're learning. So you could share what you've learned in today's podcast, for example. You can turn that into content. You can share, everyone's going to webinars almost every day, it seems, lately. You can share something, just one thing you learned in a recent webinar that you attended, and then what effect it had on you. Again, as it relates to what you do and what you do for the people and what you want to be known for. So that's the third step. So choose a format, choose a platform, choose a topic, and then you are ready to draft your prototype. Just do it. Don't strive for perfection. Just draft. We could call it the first one, but I like to think of it as your prototype. This is the structure. It's got this section, it's got this section, it's got this section. I don't think it needs more than 3 sections. And then send it out. Let it be good enough. Start thinking immediately about the next one. Don't wait until you have to start over. Just get the ball rolling immediately. That will give you a jump start. And that will also distract you from any impulse toward focusing on what I call vanity metrics, open rates, click-through rates. None of that matters, in my opinion. It's all about getting the ideas and your name out there into people's inboxes so that they remember you. Whether they clicked on it doesn't matter, right? How often do you click on an email newsletter or a marketing newsletter, even if you've read it, even if the ideas and the person has registered in your mind, you may not click. So please, let's not overestimate the value of these quote unquote vanity metrics. So those are the 5 steps. And then the 6th step is rinse and repeat. I promise it will get better as you go. So I want to wrap up with the 3 hallmarks of an effective newsletter. From my point of view, number 1, it's simple and easy to read, whether that means it's short or it's long. Number 2, it's useful and relevant to the people you are writing to the people in your network. That's who it needs to be relevant to. And number 3, as Ann Handley said, and I wish I had said, it is more letter than news. It is personal. Your voice comes through. You don't have to write about personal, private stuff, obviously. I don't. But it has your voice. It has your tone. It has your authenticity. And you may not know what that is right at the beginning, but just start getting it out there and it will develop. You're going to build your list slowly by inviting everyone you know to receive it, by inviting people who connect with you on LinkedIn to subscribe, and by letting people you meet in real time, in person, know that the way you stay in touch is with a snappy email newsletter or a helpful email newsletter. And you can even literally say, I'll remove the burden of you having to remember that I exist. Don't say, can I add you to my newsletter list? No one wants that. And that's it. Trust me, this is what works. And when you get newsletter magic, I want you to let me know. Seriously, reach out to me, email me, message me on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time. So I do hope this was helpful. And please let me know if you have questions. And if you want my help finding clients using AI, which we've been doing a lot lately, I want you to check out my new one-on-one AI client finding coaching calls. There's a link right on my homepage. Or you can just sign up for my quick tips at marketing-mentor.com. Once you're on the site, you'll find lots more resources, including my simplest marketing plan. So enjoy, and I'll see you next time.